Okay, so very welcome to everybody. Nice to see you all. I hope everybody had a great weekend, um, and I hope you're all ready to get back to the markets and the charts. I have been a little bit off the radar lately. I can't seem to stay home for more than a day the last couple of weeks. We got back after a semi-extended trip of almost 2 weeks, just middle of last week, and then left the very next day for another situation. And so, anyways, I'm happy to be home. I've been in my office all day, and I'm home now doing the webinar here from my house. So, anyways, good to see you guys, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be back to the charts. It doesn't look like I've missed out on too terribly much. I've been trading a little less the last week or so. I've been trading a good little bit less. But it doesn't look like I missed out on too terribly much activity. There's been a couple of nice movers and some nice trades and some nice things happening. But overall, I think we're just seeing some pretty good summer conditions. So that is pretty summerific. Hey Ralph, nice to see you. So let's just see what we've got going on here. First and foremost, I want to welcome everybody out once again. This is Day Traders FX, and we have a live trade group. This is just my Monday watch list. This is where I share with everybody kind of a few things that I'm looking at this week and how I'm hopefully intending on trading them. We do meet twice a day most of the time. We're meeting a little bit less in the summertime because markets are kind of choppy. We're just meeting once a day most of the time in the summer. But the rest of the year we meet twice a day, and we just kind of watch markets. We trade them. We take short-term trades, long-term trades, and so on. Here's kind of the bigger outlook that I have for this entire week, and that's what we're going to cover right now. If you'd like a free trial and a little bit more of a taste of what we do, you can click on that link, or you can go to daytradersfx.com/join and get a 5-day free trial to our group. We'd love to have you. So that's that. This week, let's just talk about news for 1/2 of 1 second. Our next news that we have coming up is the monetary policy meeting minutes, kind of the meeting minutes from the central bank in Australia. That's coming up in about 2 hours. It can be a little bit of a mover. That's where they'll talk about kind of where they see interest rates and so on. It's no interest rate announcement officially, but it's just kind of what they see happening with interest rates. Tuesday, we mostly have Australian news to kind of get things going. We have CPI numbers for Australia on Tuesday, and then we have a speech from Stevens, the governor of the central bank in Australia. Wednesday, we have a little bit of central bank activity, the interest rate vote in England. This isn't actually an interest rate announcement, so to speak. This is a vote on what voting members want to see happen with interest rates. And interest rates right now are kind of the thing that matters. They always are the thing that matters, but they really matter a lot right now. And then we have interest rate announcements for New Zealand. So we're going to do some live events within the group trading these news announcements, particularly the interest rate news for New Zealand coming this week. So we'll trade that. Retail sales for the UK is coming up. That's always a decent mover. Trade balance for New Zealand once again, and then we've got some Euro news coming up on Friday. So it's not a heavy news week. We've had a couple of heavy news weeks, and this one's not that, which is kind of nice. It gives us a little bit of a breather, and we can take some of these slightly bigger, longer-term trades without fear of the news really jumping in and getting us. Does anybody know what we have here? I don't even know what we have here. What did I put up? Okay, I know what we have now. It's a chart, that's for sure. This right here, so anybody that's been in my trade group here, that's been here with us, say for the last, anybody that's been in for the last couple of years, you guys know that I've been talking about this little situation right here, which is gold. I'm talking about gold reaching a specific level, $1,088. And why do I think it's going to get there? Why did I even think that was a remote possibility? Well, gold went sideways. Gold's an interesting one. Whether you trade it or not, it's good to watch for dollar pairs. Gold went sideways for like, I don't know, 5 years, and it literally did nothing. You know, it was kind of in that two. We got as low as about 250 and about as high as 350 an ounce for several years, and then gold just took off. It just went totally crazy and kind of started breaking those highs, And right around 2005, it really started to run up. We saw 600 and 700, all the way up to $1,900 an ounce, which is a pretty big deal. Gold ran up and then it just collapsed off that level, and it ran from 1900, pulled back down here to 1500, a little bit of a retracement, and then it pulled back down here to about 1100 and change, and that's kind of where gold has been for a while. One thing that I've been looking at is from this low of the last, nearly 20 years, to the high of just a couple of years ago, I've been watching the 50% fib level, 50% fib level, which is at that 1088, that $1,088 level, and that's the 50% fib of a massive range on gold, and it finally hit it. And I've been watching that for several years now, and it hit that level. And so the big question we have is whether you were in that trade or not. What does that mean for the U.S. dollar? The dollar does a pretty good job, and that's where this chart comes in. The dollar does a pretty good job kind of moving opposite of gold, really. So gold strengthens, dollar weakens. Gold weakens, the dollar strengthens. So what we have here, this is gold right here on the candlestick side of things. That's gold. And then this is the dollar index, this line right here. So you can see they've had a pretty good inverse relationship for a good little bit of time. And the further back we go, the more we can see that that's the case. Dollar and gold, I mean, we just keep on going, and it gets more and more intense. The U.S. dollar and gold just move opposite of each other, and so what we have here is this is the dollar index that has just been kind of, gold was flat, consolidated for quite some time before it started to move lower. The dollar index was flat and consolidated for quite some time before it started to move higher. But gold's starting to break, and the dollar index has been pushing even more. And so now that we have that big level that was reached on gold, that 1088 level, I'm very closely watching the dollar index, and I'm watching to see where this thing goes. Typically, if we see some pretty big moves on gold, that's telling of probably some more dollar movement to come. Basically, there's been more rumors, there's more suspecting that interest rates in the U.S. might be going up, and that really started a massive sell-off on gold, and the dollar rallied a good little bit with that news. And so what I'm looking at here is what this is going to mean for us. What kind of trades are we going to be able to do with this kind of news? That gold has been rallying a bunch, dropping a bunch, and the dollar index has been rallying. You can see that this trend line right here goes back a couple of months, and the dollar index has been pulling back, and it's broken out, retested that trend line, and it's on its way up. All the while, gold is on its way down. And gold could be headed for the 61.8. And just out of curiosity, if anybody's wondering where that 61.8 is on gold, it's just below the 200 moving average on the monthly chart, and it's at 890, which feels pretty low, but that's where it is, just FYI, so it's there. So we at least have to assume a little bit that we're going to see some more dollar strength. Now, it's not all dollar strength. There's a combination of U.S. dollar strength and strength on other currency pairs as well, but it's pretty safe to say that we'll probably see a semi-consistent amount of dollar strength across the board this week. How long it'll last will definitely depend on some more news that we have coming out, but I'm kind of looking for that dollar strength to happen, especially with this big gold movement that we've seen. So where I'm going to look for some opportunities is particularly in a couple of different pairs. One of them being, just for the record, I kind of really don't like the euro dollar right now. I think I dislike it a heavy amount. So I'm not doing anything with the euro dollar, except I'm just kind of keeping a half of an eye on this low here with euro dollar. This is 108, about 108.18. I just have to mention this. If this breaks this double bottom, this is the low of May, and then and this is significant because remember, we usually see big movements in May, and we saw this big high in May, and it ran down 650 pips and made that low, and then bounced off it like crazy, and it's running back at it again. So 108.18, 108.20 is interesting. We start getting below 108.100, and it might be time to start shorting the euro dollar, and likewise a little bit of a pullback to the 109 or just a little bit above 109.100 could also be a good opportunity to short euro dollar. But But honestly, for the most part, I'm staying mostly out of euro dollar. But I'm just watching. This is a good level, and in the group we may take a trade here. It depends how things play out, but we very well might take a trade here on euro dollar at the break of the low, depending on how things are playing out this week. So just watch that 10800-ish area on euro dollar. Could be a very interesting one. The pound dollar has been a little bit choppy as well. One thing that I was very interested in with the pound dollar is this huge channel that we've had for the last couple of months. It broke out and it retested the channel and made a little bit of a really short-term double top right here, and then it's been coming back down. In my opinion, the only thing that we need to be looking at with pound dollar here, if this breaks below this weekly low right here, just a simple trade about 155.35 area, if it breaks below that, I'm probably going to short pound dollar because this is a pretty nice move right here. It's a pretty nice breakout of this rising channel, and technically before the breakout happened, it was also a rising wedge. So we had a rising wedge, and we also had this we also had this channel in play, and so the fact that it kind of broke out of that and retested is a very good sign that this could very well continue down. So I'm going to be watching that 155.30-40 area and looking for a break and a move back down into some of these lows of 153.50, 154.00, kind of in that general area, looking for about 100 pips or so. Nothing super major, but it's a great price pattern. And likely we're going to see more chop. If this holds, I'm not super excited about buying this dip. Although we do have kind of an ugly, I need to go to a chiropractor inverse head and shoulders pattern that we can see on the 4-hour chart. So this will be something to just kind of keep an eye on here. We kind of have a shoulder that didn't really happen super well over here, and a nice little head, and then a shoulder here. And so I'm going to call this neckline, this double top area, this test of that trend line of that whole area. So if we start getting above 156.75, I definitely want to be long above that 156.75. So that's the level we've been definitely watching for a little while. So 156.75 is going to be a good one to buy above. So 156.75. Otherwise, we're going to short this 155.35 area down below. But watch that because that could turn out to be a head and shoulders pattern. And if that does break, then that invalidates any amount of this trend channel and this rising wedge and so on. So keep an eye on that 156.75 buy above. I'm keeping an eye on the Aussie dollar, but nothing too terribly much to say on that one at the moment. EURCAD, there are a couple of euro pairs, surprisingly, that I'm looking at. EURCAD is still interesting. I'll buy EURCAD below 140, probably below 139 again. If it gets below 139.00, I'll buy EURCAD again because I still think that this huge head and shoulders pattern is going to play out very nicely. And it's already hit kind of our first target, which was 142.50, and I still think it's going to make it up to 145.00. But I'll only buy that, and I probably won't hardly talk about this at all this week unless we get into the trade. But I'll probably buy that below 139.00 if it gets there, just to keep an eye on that. Aussie New Zealand's looking interesting. We're going to talk about what these New Zealand pairs are going to do this week during some of the live sessions. So if you'd like to know more about New Zealand pairs, they're getting interesting. They're getting very interesting. It'd be a good time to get a free trial to the group and kind of see what we're going to be doing with the New Zealand pairs this week. Aussie New Zealand's looking very interesting. We're going to talk more about that. Right now we see U.S. dollar strength, and we definitely are seeing some Canadian dollar weakness, and we see oil prices back down below $50 again. So I expect this dollar CAD to continue a bit higher. I don't know how much higher it's going to go, but it's getting into some pretty historic levels. We're now into the highs of, we're just shy of the highest point of 2009, and beyond that, we're going to start getting into highs of way back here, 2004 and so on. So we have, 140, 135, and 140 are going to be some, very possible levels. But right now we're just kind of seeing what it does with 130. We made a couple of pips on this thing. I think 40 or 50 pips on this trade last week on this move up. But dollar CAD, the other thing is that it's getting a little bit on the overextended side of things. The 1 hour chart is showing us some pretty amazing numbers, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a little correction on dollar CAD this week. So just kind of be aware of that whole thing, and be ready to trade a break of a channel, and kind of just trade that whole situation there. And Bo, yes, and that's why, remember, we got into this trade because it was a bull flag. So if this is still playing out, that's 220 pips, and the low here, how high has it gone? It's gone only 120 pips, so there still is some pretty good potential for the dollar CAD to continue a little bit higher. So yeah, so yes, Bo, we could enter a break up, and that would be a trade that I would watch so very, very closely and very carefully, because remember, my indicator right here on the 1 hour chart is telling us we're now beyond the previous max pips. We're 371 bars since the last touch of the moving average. You know, there's a lot of things here that make me a little afraid, and not to mention we're right up at that 130. I think the dollar CAD will probably continue higher because of how the US dollar and the Canadian dollar and oil prices are all going. But I'm getting a little scared to get into the buy side of this one just yet. I wouldn't mind to get a little correction, a little bit of a dip down, and then maybe buy that dip as opposed to buy the break, because our 1 hour chart is getting pretty intense there, so we got to keep an eye on that. But good point, very good point. And we will watch this one very, very closely, and we may take a buy trade on it this week as well. That's looking excellent. Just a couple other quick ones I'm keeping an eye on. New Zealand dollar, US dollar has been in a pretty big slide since the highs of April. It's run down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pips and just kind of continued to head lower. We'll see how this New Zealand dollar does, especially with interest rates and so on coming up. If they say anything at all hawkish in the interest rate news, then we could see some nice New Zealand dollar movement. My 4 hour chart here is looking pretty excellent for the New Zealand dollar buy side of things. So even a little spike up, we've got some nice missed pivots up here and some good activity there. The 200 moving average on the 4 hour chart sits at about 68.25, and we're at about 65.75. So we could see some nice moves up on New Zealand dollar. We're at 810 pips. Current max pips, and the previous was 750. So this has run further than anything that we've seen for quite some time. So decent possibilities that we could get some little short-term buy trades on some New Zealand pairs, especially depending on how the news goes. So New Zealand dollar may turn into a nice little buy trade. And likewise, the Euro New Zealand could turn into an interesting little trade. So we're looking for New Zealand strength, and we're still looking for Euro weakness. So Euro New Zealand looks very, very interesting with this big rising wedge right here. We can even see it probably better on the 4 hour chart. No, it's not like the daily chart. So Euro New Zealand is looking super awesome, super interesting, and nice little rising wedge. And as that starts to break that 164 kind of 30 low, we have a whole bunch of stuff to target all the way down here. Lots and lots of missed pivots. And you can see that our 200 moving average and all of these details right here, 362 bars since the last touch of the 200 moving average, 1,700 pips since that last test, and the biggest one before was 1,100. This is a big go for shorting Euro New Zealand. So I really, really like this one, and I think it's going to be a pretty fantastic trade. So that 4 hour chart only gives us about 200 pips to get to that weekly pivot and 200 moving average, but that's 200 pips I'll take all day long. So I like Euro New Zealand, I like Euro weakness, New Zealand strength, and I also like Euro Yen. I like Yen strength and Euro weakness here. So I like this big head and shoulders pattern that's running up. We're still looking for 133.30. It's still 130 pips away. There's a lot of 30s in there. But if this breaks, I want to be in that thing, and I think we've got 600 to 700 pips if we can break 133.30 area and stay in this thing. It should be a nice little mover. So those are the kinds of things we're looking for. So just a reminder here, rising wedge, Euro New Zealand. I want to sell the break of about 164.30. and I want to trade this thing down for at least 100 pips and probably 200 to 300 pips, because I think we can get down into this monthly pivot around 160, 100, but at least down into that weekly pivot is around 162.30. So I want to sell that break of 164.30 down for at least 100, but probably 200 pips. I want to sell the break of 133.30 on Euro Yen, head and shoulders pattern. I think this is going to be, 400 to 700 pips worth of good movement. I'm watching New Zealand dollar for a possible break to the upside because of our 4-hour chart here, how overextended it is. So probably up above 6,600, I'll be looking to get long, or I may buy a dip on New Zealand dollar. Dollar CAD is looking interesting. If this can move a little bit higher, then I'll sell the break, or if it moves a little bit lower, I'll buy the dip. And then we're going to be very, very cautious with anything euro dollar we do. Buy the break or sell the break of the double bottom, very tight stops, risk very little on this one. And likewise, sell the break of this weekly low on pound dollar because of our test of that rising wedge and that continuation down. But again, if this gets back up above 156.75, about 100 pips higher than where it currently is, I will buy the heck out of that as well. So that's kind of where we are on all those trades. I think we've got some really, really, really good setups this week, and I'm pretty excited about them. Mel wants to know, is that after the New Zealand news? Yes, yes. So I will not get into anything before the New Zealand news. There's a small possibility I could take a trade before New Zealand news, but I would rather enter the trade, with the New Zealand news or just after the New Zealand news. So yeah. One thing I definitely try to avoid is being in trades during interest rate announcements. That gets really tricky. So yeah, good point, Mel. Thanks for bringing that up, and good to see you, Mel. So those are the trades we're looking for. Big focus on Euro New Zealand and Euro Yen this week. I'm going to really pound on those guys, and I think they're going to be super interesting. And then we're just going to watch that dollar index in gold and see if we can grab a couple hundred pips out of some of this movement this week. So that's what we're looking for. Thanks a bunch, everyone, for joining us. Any questions or comments about any of that, let me know. And I'll be here for a couple of moments getting it all posted and getting everything up. So questions, comments, pairs you want to look at, just send it all over, and then we get this video going right now.